was a guy coming in literally the day they made the announcement, ready to buy himself a Camaro and treat himself. And on purpose, he drove right down the street and bought a Chrysler.
I'm Jimmy Bruce, president of Eastern Gateway Community College. We're proud to sponsor this thought-provoking interview series with community leaders who, through perseverance and determination, are being who they want to be and making a difference in the Mahoning Valley.
Let's talk about General Motors leaving Lordstown. How did that affect your business and some of your relationships?
Well, the first answer is we don't know yet. In terms of General Motors actually leaving. So let's maybe take a step back in a little bit of historical context. When my dad came here in 1980, and we can look this up statistically, but GM had to be very close to the top of its employment and all of its footprints out there in Lordstown, which was approaching 10,000 people. I mean, it was just tons of employment. And over time, a lot of those jobs were automated and or sent out to other supportive plants or vendor subletted out. And a couple years ago, we fast forward, we're down to 2 shifts out there at Lordstown, and I think about a little over 3,500 people, if I'm not mistaken. So then when the announcement was made last fall that they were, quote, unallocated plant, which basically was General Motors' way of saying it's probably over. And now that we have a chance to look back at it in hindsight, and when that happened, they were down to 1 shift of about 1,500 people, and GM had to find homes for some of those people. And many of our customers have stopped in, said goodbye, asked if their family can still get their car serviced here, why they go to Tennessee, why they go to Indiana, why they go to Michigan, Texas, various places. So hopefully many of them still have jobs and have done what they have to do. But it's certainly not looking promising for the return of a General Motors product out there. We just don't know, but it's possible, but that's a real outside chance.
Have you felt any kind of repercussions or from people who say are angry that General Motors isn't going to be there and they're not going to buy GM anymore?
Initially, the social media responses were off the charts. I'm never buying another GM car. There was a guy coming in literally the day they made the announcement, ready to buy himself a Camaro and treat himself. And on purpose, he drove right down the street and bought a Chrysler. And just to say he did. And was proud to tell people about that. So you're going to have that initially. What we see right now, frankly, is not much of that. What we see right now is people trying to understand it more deeply, try to understand where their loyalties and their needs really, really fall. And so I think it's just a little bit different position. What we also see is because the plant was there for 50 years, that yes, we lost 1,400 people in the final shutdown of things, but there's generations of people who live locally because they worked at General Motors Lordstown. They're retirees, okay? And they're people who are close enough to retirement that they can be okay with whatever they need to do to fill in until they get there. And so overall, we've got still very, very supportive people in this marketplace, and they disproportionately support domestic products, especially General Motors. It reminds me of a story. My wife took me to an anniversary trip a couple years ago, and we were staying at a bed and breakfast down south in Asheville, North Carolina, and a guy asked me what I did, and I told him, you know, I'm a big Chevy dealer in Youngstown, Ohio, blah, blah, blah. We go, Youngstown, everything okay up there economically? Yeah, everything's okay. He said, well, explain a little bit about your business. I said, well, here's the deal. We're right down the street from the Lordstown plant, and all we have to do is not screw it up. All we have to do is really, really show up with a smile and take good care of those people because they're just that loyal to our products. And as it's turned out so far, it's really maintained that. We still see a tremendous amount of loyalty, and we still have a great customer loyalty at our own dealership, and I think most of the other dealerships in the area are seeing the same thing.
What would you like to see out at that plant?
Wow, good question. First thing I'd like to see is I'd like to see a return of a General Motors product. Because that would be really important to our economy. That would be overall economy, not just us, selfishly, but certainly the whole economy would do well. And I would like to see it be a little more progressive, because one of the bigger problems with that plant was apparently it didn't have the capacity to make the variable changes to get a little bigger roof into the paint operations or the primers, and so it was somehow, some way, just kind of capacity constrained, and they didn't have the investment or weren't able to make the investment in that particular plant. And what we're seeing in the car business nationally is the drying up of the actual car business and the increasing of the crossover utility, sport utility, and truck business. So the truck business is on fire. And the car business for every manufacturer on the globe is under pressure, especially if they produce and sell in North America. So it's just the dynamic of the marketplace. Some of it is the cost of fuel. Some of it is the desire and the open road of America, where we need all these different things to support us when we go to our, across so much rural landscape. And some of it is just customer preference.
Where do you see cars in the next 10, then 20, then 30 years? So is your son's grandchild, or maybe your son's son, your grandchild, going to eventually say, wait, you used to drive the car? You used to sit there and have to drive it? Or are they eventually going to say, wait, it was on the road? I mean, you were down on the ground driving? I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I think that's quite interesting, and an interesting thing to talk about. About a year ago, my wife and I went down for a dinner in Pittsburgh, and we decided to spend the night, and got up the next morning and walked down to the Strip District, get a coffee, and plus it's a pretty place to walk. And as I'm walking down through the Strip District, I look over at the corner of my eye, and there's a Ford Fusion going by with a guy sitting in the passenger seat but nobody in the driver's seat.
They're testing it there.
And I go, oh, Alice, is for real. And then there was a handful of them that go by. I took some pictures of it. I go, that's for real. And they are doing it in Pittsburgh. It's kind of a unique place, a testing ground for it, I think, with all the colleges and with the streets. And frankly, I like going to Pittsburgh. It's an interesting town, but if you don't know where you're going, it's pretty easy to get lost in that town, right? And, it's all one-way streets and various things. So that's fascinating. And there's no question, I think, that we're going to see some of that. Is that the 10-year thing? No, I think it's going to be a little longer. Second of all, I think the more immediate option on that would probably be commercial use, would be more the trucking, more of how do we efficiently do that, and so again, automation.
How about 10 years for even, I should say probably 5 years, all electric cars here?
I think you're going to see a lot more electric cars. For years we've talked about this kind of multiple solution to getting better fuel economy. But I think pretty rapidly we're going to have to figure out what we have to do to truly change that carbon footprint. So that's really, really planting a ton of trees or creating some kind of machine that doesn't exist today, that can take a lot of carbon out of the air very quickly so we can keep doing what we've always been doing. Or you're going to see a huge movement towards electrification, and I think you will see that in 10 years. Especially on the truck side, the pickup truck side, the possibility of the workhorse coming to Lordstown, maybe being the replacement to the General Motors. That wouldn't be my first preference, but it looks like it's still pursuing that. There was an announcement the other day that they've got some funding, and they'll be able to do that. Well, one of the things they're trying to do with their new venture is get the electric United States Postal Service contract.
Okay.
That's what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
That's what they're trying to be. They're trying to be the first to market and have the right bid and set themselves up a production process that would allow that to happen. And so those are the kind of things that would grow. It's like a moonshot. Those are the kind of things that you begin to grow technology and capability for our local economy too.
I'm Jimmy Bruce, president of Eastern Gateway Community College. We're proud to sponsor this thought-provoking interview series with community leaders who, through perseverance and determination, are being who they want to be and making a difference in the Mahoning Valley.